Hey, I'm G Love, and that just happened.
Hey guys, what's going on? It is Front Row Joe. I'm here at the Capitol Theater in Clearwater with this guy right over here, G Love, and he brought the special sauce. So we're very excited to see you. This is a 25-year tour, man, and that's a lot of water under the bridge, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
Well, I think after 25 years, that begs to maybe do a little reflection, a little nostalgic. Can we get a little nostalgic for just a little bit? Of course. Awesome. So I'm not going to ask you, did you ever think 25 years ago that you thought that you would be here? That's a default. That's boring. What I do want to ask you is, what are your thoughts on fans still digging cold beverages here in 2019?
I'm glad they do. I'll be out of a job, man.
Yeah.
No, we're really happy. We're very thankful. We're I think you just kind of said it, like, as time goes on, as musicians always say, like, we wouldn't be here without you, like when they talk to the crowd, it's really true, like, we wouldn't. Our fans have been the best, so supportive. We've been doing this thing for a long time, through lots of changes in the business, lots of changes in our lives, and the fans have stuck with us through up cycles and down cycles and no cycles and bicycles and tricycles and every kind of cycles. So yeah, we're really lucky to have such great fans.
Yeah. And let's go back even further to high school when you first started really playing. Were you the cool kid playing blues, slide guitar, and the harmonica?
Music was I never played music to be cool, but I did think it was pretty cool to play music. I started at a young age. When I was 8 years old, I started playing guitar, and I was really lousy at it. But by the time I was 13, 14, it started sounding pretty good. And then I started writing songs when I was 15. And again, I don't know why I started writing songs, but it was just kind of a knee-jerk reaction to teenage life. But it was a really pure thing. There was no kind of nothing else behind it. I wasn't trying to make money. I wasn't trying to. In the 80s, you couldn't just put on YouTube. There was no way to be a rock star. So I was just writing songs because I felt the need to express myself. So I do believe that it was like a pure, form of expression, and that's what I still try to maintain. But in high school, when I started going to parties and stuff, there would always be these big parties in a city, like all the city kids, and it would always be like a room with a ton of weed smoke and people with djembes and bongos and acoustic guitars, and that's where you find me. And I never really liked to socialize, and I can never understand, why do people just want to stand around and talk? I want to jam, So that was always me. I was always in the jam room, and then, later on I got to play some of those parties, and then now I play a party every night. And if we go out, and if I go out to a bar, I still say, man, why do people want to stand around and talk? I want to play.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, that's good stuff. And let's talk about that then. So fast forward just a little bit after high school, your decision to move from Philly to Boston, standing in line to get your permit so you can busk on the streets. What were your intentions back then? You talked about you had no pretenses of being a rock star or whatever. What was your mindset when you were standing in line and say, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start playing on the streets?
Well, yeah, so by the time, I was around 18 when I did stand in line to get a permit to play as a street musician. I had already been a street musician in Philadelphia. So once I started writing songs, I did have this urge to record and to perform them for people, and I wanted people to hear them. So, that started me down the road towards, being a professional musician, you know, call it rock star, whatever you want. I mean, I don't know if I'm a rock star, but I'm a musician. But anyways, yeah, like it started me on the path like, oh, I want to do this as a job, or AKA I don't want to have a real job. You know what I mean? I don't want to go to college. I want to just play music. I wanted to pursue that as a craft. So being a street musician was the first gig you can have that no one can tell you no, and anybody can stop and watch you or not, and you can make a little money usually. So to me, that was an opportunity to, I never fully supported myself as a street musician, but it did help make ends meet, and more importantly, it put me in a chance to really work and hone on my craft of, you know, what songs people reacted to, and what could set me apart from other street musicians, and could I hold a crowd, and mostly just to practice performing. And it's different when you're a musician, when you're in a performance setting, playing for 2 to 8 hours a day, which what it would be as a busker. It's different than sitting at home and practicing, because you're in a performance setting. So even though no one's watching you, you still have to perform the song and not stop and finish. So it was and everybody in my band were street performers at one time or another. So I feel like that ultimately helped me to become a strong, confident performer, because, hey man, I'll play for nobody. You know what I mean? So I still say that to myself before I go on stage every night. Like, I'm happy if there's 0 to 1 million people watching, because I'm happy in myself playing music. And so I still try to maintain that attitude.
Yeah. So any aspects of playing on the street, and maybe fancy going back incognito and see what happens?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, I'll pick up my guitar and go play down, you know, on the bench by the water or in the park any old day. I love to play outside. I probably don't put my case out, but I do like to play outside for the passersby. But I mean, you know, again, like, to me, everything's got to be real. You know, it's like, that's not where I'm at anymore. So that's not what I want to do. You know what I mean? But I mean, like I said, I'll go walk around a harmonica or whatever.
Yeah. But very cool. So you've got
a little bit of money in my pocket now. So I don't want to take yours on the street, man.
Well, that's very altruistic of you, for sure. So over 20 albums, that's some prolific songwriting there. You know, again, another default question might be, what keeps you inspired, blah, blah, blah. That, I think you've answered that a couple different times. My question would be, though, is ever hit writer's block? And if you did, how'd you deal with it?
I don't so much get writer's block. I get, like, writers have no time to write. You know what I mean? Like, so as a songwriter, I'm just constantly always, you know, I used to have a book. Now I got, you know, my phone, and I put ideas, whether I sing melodies or freestyle raps, or write down catchy phrases that I could hear anybody, anytime saying something. Always looking for something sticky, something that's going, a little catchphrase or a word that jumps out, that's going to be a sticky part of a song. I'm very interested in, like, words and language, and how to put words together and use, you know, imagery and everything else in different ways that haven't been done. Like, that's my kind of goal as a writer. Still maintains, like, I want to do something original. I want to use words that haven't been in songs before. I want to always keep my thing original. So I don't really get a writer's block. There's certainly days when I pick up my guitar and, like, just a bunch of bullshit comes out, and then I go do something else, you know? And I think that's an important thing to know, like, when it's time to, like, say, like, you know, I'm just forcing it, I'm banging my head against the wall. Good songs come from, like, a lot of work and a lot of, like, absorbing, you know, life and things outside of yourself, and then, you know, and then eventually you get a groove going, and it should happen very simply and really relatively quickly. The moment when you come up with a great song, especially a lot of the great songs are the simple ones that come really easily, and you say, wow, how did that happen so easily? Well, really, it was all the time up to that moment, and then it just, came out. So my most thing is, like, trying to find the time to, like, because it is, even the easy ones, it's still going to take hours to hone in the idea, hours and hours and hours. So, you might have all these ideas and you make the song, and then you got to keep practicing the song over and over and over and over, hours and hours and hours before you're ready to bring it to your band, and then you got to get it with these guys, and then so it's always a process, But yeah, I find that it's just always time. Time is just our most precious thing that we all have, and making the time to pursue your craft and hone in on ideas is important.
Yeah. So again, 25 years. Whenever the self-titled album came out back in '94, you toured incessantly. You had 250 some odd shows in a year. Was that the right call at the time, or in retrospect, was it just how it was?
Yeah, I mean, it was just how it was. I mean, it was just like, we put together a band. 9 months later, we had a deal with Epic Records. I mean, everything was constant, like, work and focus and shows and everything else to get to these different landmarks, but it was like happening. Then once you got into the system in the 90s of, like, releasing records on a major label record, it was like, all right, well, you're gonna put this record and you're gonna make a video or not, and you're gonna hit the radio, hit the road, do shows, do interviews, go to this country, go to that country, hit all these major markets. I mean, I don't really know, because I was like a kid, I was like 20 when we got signed, and I had all the energy in the world. So looking back, I think about 10 years into it, I started feeling like, whoa, dude, like, there's too much. We can't do all this, the whole world, every year. Like, you can't get to every city and town and country in a year and then do it again, like this vicious circle. And then I was like, let's take a step back here for a second. And we kind of stopped going to Europe around the turn of the century. Around the turn of the century, G-Love stopped going to Europe every year, because it was like, let's focus on the U.S. and I've always felt like we're like an American band playing in American songs in an American land, and that's not to mean like Japan's been a huge market for us, Australia and Europe and Brazil, everything, but my songs do have a lot of words in them, and the subtleties of those lyrics kind of get lost in a language barrier a lot of times, which is frustrating for me as a performer. But I love touring the whole world. But I guess long story short is that, man, yeah, we were really grinding it, and it was a lot of work. And I'm glad I don't know how I did it. We still grind hard. We still do, between 100, 150 shows a year. So that's maybe 100 less shows than we did in the mid 90s, but it's still quite a bit of time. But life is good, and we. It's the wonderful thing about doing what we do is that every night I get a chance to play my best show ever, and that's what I look at it like. Before I go out on stage, I say, I'm gonna have my greatest show ever tonight, and that's the mindset that I'm in, because I believe that. Like, I believe that I'm gonna keep getting better every night, or at least die trying.
Gotcha. Well, let's go back to that first recording. I always thought it was interesting that it happened to OK, which is historically significant, I guess, as a blues and race label. Was that something that you felt at the time, or was it just a blur, like you said?
No, that was a really interesting. So Michael Kaplan was an A&R guy, and it was, like I said, it was Sony, which owned everything: Columbia, Epic, 550. all these labels underneath them, and so they had all these old catalogs. OK Records was, like you said, it was called a race label, which means that they put out popular and blues recordings by African American musicians. So actually Robert Johnson was on OK Records, and I think Bessie Smith had cuts on that label. So yeah, it was just, and so it was like a blues label, a lot of it. And Michael Kaplan said to myself, and he had also just signed Kebmo, right, who is producing my new record right this very moment. He signed Keb, and then he signed us, said, well, you're signed to Epic, but we'd like to release you to launch this record. So actually, they had signed Keb first, but they released us first, and then they released Keb right after or alongside. So it was cool. And also there was Papa Chubby was a New York blues guy. Anders Osborne was a Scandinavian guy who came via New Orleans and is still out in the scene. And anyways, yeah, so that was it. OK Records, but it was like, to me, it was cool because I was, steeped. I was a student of the Delta blues, and like that was my whole reason I stumbled upon the blues, upon like hip hop blues, was my pursuit of, trying to play like John Hammond and Robert Johnson and other Delta blues guys that I was, enamored with, and so this is really like. Really special to me that we relaunched that record label, and it was a good run we had with them from '93 till 2001. Yeah. And then, funny enough, like I just said, it was full circle. My old label mate happens to be Kebmo, and Keb's career has just keep going steadily up, and we never really did too much over the years, but we reconnected the last like 5 years and talked about doing something, and we both followed through. So I've spent a lot of time this past year down in Nashville in his studio, and he's been a wonderful it's been a wonderful reconnection to make with Keb, and like deeper than we ever were, and to learn so much about the blues from him, and to kind of be coached. And we got some kind of record working on right now.
Oh, right on. That's really cool. What's do we have a release yet, or?
I think it's gonna come out this year. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I think this summer. We're kind of in the post-production. Yeah. Point of it, and he's a very meticulous producer. So yeah, it's a process. The whole thing's been a process. The writing, the demoing, the recording, and now we're in the kind of the last third of it, I think.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, really cool. So I know you got a meet and greet, and then you got to get up on stage later on, so I want to be respectful of your time. Could talk to you all day long about all the great stuff that you've done.
You just got to ask me one question. I'll just keep talking all day.
I like it. Some of the blues greats that you talked about that you personally know have played with, John Lee Hooker, he played until he was in his 80s. You got another 25 years in you?
Well, I have to have more than that, man. I'm 46. So it's funny you say that, because I guess it trips me out, like, when you think about that, because, and also I've been thinking about this a lot, because actually we have a 2-year-old, and I'm getting married in the fall. I have a 17-year-old and a 2-year-old. And now I'm in a happy relationship, and we, like, on a personal level, like, we finally got like our forever home. And when I'm off the road, I'm very settled these days, and I sure love the road, and I love to play shows, but I will be honest with you, it gets harder to leave when I'm in a good relationship and I love my kids, so it is challenging. And then I look at guys like, and plus it's my job now, like I have to work, and I have to keep my guys working, and I want to work, I want to play, but it's one of those things, like, You know, then I look at like, well, look at Willie Nelson and, you know, Bob Dylan. Like, they certainly don't need any money, I don't think. I don't know, but they're, you know, Willie's like just turned 80. And I think he does 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off all year, every year. And like you said, John Lee Hooker was performing, and everybody, Buddy Guy, same thing. Like, these guys do a lot of shows. And then, so I guess that's, I guess it never ends, you know what I mean?
Which is lucky for you.
I guess, you know, like, I think that, I think I probably will do this till the day I die. And, I imagine that my schedule won't be quite this busy. You know, I guess the goal is to play, you know, for more people, so that you can reach more people with less shows. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the goal, and some people achieve that, and some people don't. But ultimately, you know, you realize that, like, your health is your most valuable asset. And I mean, it's something else. Like, it's something else to go out, like you said the first thing in the interview, like, it's something else to go out and perform songs that you've now been playing for over 25 years and see the joy that it gives people and the joy that it gives us. So I guess we're just all in all super thankful to be here, and just like all musicians, just everybody just wants someone to listen to them, and so we're happy that there are people listening to us, you know.
Right on. Well, it's been a pleasure over the 25 years. We talked a little bit about That Just Happened. Over that 25 years, is there a That Just Happened moment that sticks out in your brain?
What do you mean?
Well, like something happened to you and you're like, either it was a seminal or pivotal moment and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. Like, after 9 months we got signed, or, you know, you met one of your idols, or, you know, something like that.
Well, I mean, I guess there's that, the one that just popped in my head, you just kind of said it, but the moment that, like, I was at Jeff's, my drummer's, he lived in this, like, studio loft apartment in Boston with, like, a shared bathroom in the hallway that, like, all the other tenants used. And, you know, he had, like, a little mini fridge, and we were over there. I mean, we had a rehearsal, and then Jim might have left, and Jeff was sitting there, and then the manager we were working with at the time called us, said, you know, we got the deal. Epic's signing you guys. And I just, like, broke down and cried, because I was like, you know, it was like an emotional thing. Like, you know, it was overwhelming to think that, like, you know, it was like, you know, I always described the music business, especially back in the day, it was like, now it's like everybody feels like they can access the music business, because you can, right? You don't even need it. But then you needed it, and it was a million light years away, and there was no way to get to it. So to imagine that in 2 years I moved to Boston, and I didn't know one person, you know, was a street musician, you know, and then, you know, I met my band the next year, and then 9 months after our first rehearsal, we signed a deal with Epic Record. Like, to me, it was like, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that everything was about to change. And I think that's why it all, like, came over me, and I was like, had this emotional thing, and it was a dream come true. So I would say that was my, oh shit, that shit just happened moment.
Yeah.
And then along the way, you know, there's like a ton of moments where you pinch yourself, where you meet, you know, where you're on stage with Buddy Guy or John Hammond and his wife are spending the weekend at your house, or you're, you know, making out with supermodel, or doing all type of weird shit that you shouldn't be doing, or, you know, getting a gold record, or playing Woodstock 99, or just writing a great song. So there's so many moments that we're really lucky to have, you know.
Yeah, and the list goes on and on with such a great career. Yeah. So really appreciate the time, and yeah, we can't wait for the show tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, sitting here with G-Love, and That Just Happened.
Peace. That just happened.